Hey everyone, welcome back to Chunky Thunder Studios podcast, where we discuss all things purpose, contribution, and entertainment. This past week, I have been checking out, and I'm not sponsored, I've been checking out the app called BetterHelp. And if you're not familiar with BetterHelp, I will kind of talk about my experiences on it. When you sign up for it, I downloaded the app. They ask you a little questionnaire to get you matched up with a therapist to your preferences. To be a little transparent and a little vulnerable. For me personally, I cannot go to any therapist that's recommended. I need to relate to someone who not only understands, who not only empathizes, but can sympathize. Someone who has had, a parallel path in some of my experiences, and someone who has gone through what I've gone through. Because while a lot of mental health professionals are still professional, there is a difference between understanding someone and then feeling for someone and then being able to relate to someone, if that makes sense. So I've been on the app for about a week now, and it is pretty robust. It is pretty robust. I've only had one quote unquote bad class, and even then, that's only because I it just wasn't right. I was trying out a little bit of everything. Right, I've done some of the group sessions, I've done some of the classes, I've had the one-on-one sessions, and so far everything has been incredible. The only class that I call bad, essentially, was the one that the coach was sorry, I say coach. Everyone is licensed and certified. These are actual right professionals. Uh, but she was just a little older, um, and she talked too much and a little too slow, and every session begins with like a little intro. It usually takes five, maybe 10 minutes, depending on how many people join the session. But this one ended up taking almost like 20 minutes. So I was like, granted I had this hour blocked out, but I was like, I already feel like I'm not getting anything out of value, after 20 minutes here. So maybe I was just in a bad mood, right? Maybe I was, but once again, that was one session out of like maybe the 9 or 10 that I've gone to throughout the week. And first and foremost, the therapist that I got paired with, she is incredible. She is phenomenal. She is fantastic. Uh, Once again, all the other coaches who lead these classes and sessions, and just to differentiate, sessions and classes are two different things. So out of BetterHelp, you're actually getting uh, three robust programs, if you will. You get your one-on-one, right, with your matched up therapist. You can attend classes where they cover everything, from anxiety and depression to burnout to financial wellness. Living with some of your diagnoses. So whether you're ADHD, whether you're bipolar, whether you're um, depressed, whether or maybe you just lost someone or you lost a pet, right? There's a whole range of classes, and there's also a whole range of sessions, right? So if you do thrive in a group setting, obviously participation in the group sessions is encouraged. And some of the best sessions that I've been a part of have been when, the people are sharing their stories and we're all supporting one another. But obviously you don't have to, right? It's all remote, it's all online. You can join from your browser or you can join from your phone, but and for the price, it still is a little on the pricey side. However, it is still cheaper than even going through my insurance. right? It's just something to think about. It's something to consider. God forbid you try it out for a month, right? And if you don't like what you got out of those 4 weeks, then I mean, really, you're just kind of out of money, right? Relatively speaking, it's not the worst thing. It's not convenient. It's not awesome. Uh, and I get that when we spend our money, we want our money to be worth what we spent, right? We want the full value out of it. But like I said, I've been a part of it for about a week, and I've gone to about I'm gonna be a little conservative with it. I've gone to about 8 sessions. But I believe just in the first week alone, I've gotten my full money's worth. So I honestly, like I said, this is not sponsored. I'm not even looking for sponsorship. That's not how I roll. I'm just giving my honest, authentic feedback on it. But I really wanted to, because I just got done attending a session uh, that was for living. How do we deal with burnout? And uh, oddly enough, I was the only male out of about 12 participants in this session. I was the only male. I did think that was interesting. Could be just, due to the time. It was like the middle of the workday, and, as we know, when it comes to men, men just like guys will literally like instead of like taking time off, right, that they need, they'll create alpha, beta, whatever classes of themselves and then insert themselves to it because they think it's good for their mental health, whatever. I don't know. There's a whole thing. I really don't believe in like the whole alpha male, sigma, gamma, whatever Greek names they're inserting now. I really do think that stuff is really stupid. Uh, but kind of what I noticed, right? And I couldn't help comparing it to my own experiences and right to my close circle, my social circles. A lot of us are being burnt out on one, the job, right? If you're in the U.S., you already know all about this. Americans are notoriously overworked and underpaid, right? We can look at countries like Japan, who also live in a capitalist society, and they quite literally also work themselves to death. Uh, right, and this isn't to say one's better or worse than the other. However, right, to make a distinction, there isn't a homeless problem in Japan. Uh, there is no homeless in Japan. Everyone's needs are taken care of. Everyone's basic needs are taken care of. So in the states, right, you can literally work to the bone, and you still might not even have water to drink, right? It might not even be clean water. It might not even be, right? You might not have enough for rice and beans, and God forbid, you have family to take care of, right? You have children who are young, and you might need daycare because you don't have that support system, right? Maybe you had to take a job, move out of state, and all of your extended family are, back where you were, and you know, and hopefully you and your spouse stuck together, right? With all these stressors, with the pressure of life, especially just financial pressure alone that is so heavy on a lot of people. It's very common, right? Finances are the leading cause of divorce, right? Financial issues. So let's say you had a good marriage and you took this job. Your wife was still working, but let's say hers wasn't, a specialty like that, and she was able to transfer, right? I don't want to create the dynamic that women are, they work less valuable jobs, right? I'm just trying to create the scenario. You move for your job, right? I mean, we can even reverse the roles. Let's say your wife was incredibly career accomplished, and she got a new opportunity. You guys decided to agree, pursue it. You moved the whole family out there. Then come to find out, it's just not what you thought it would be. It's not what you wanted it to be, and uh, Now you're head over heels in debt, and that puts a strain on the family, and right, things happen. Things happen. And with all these participants, right, and for the sake of anonymity, uh, I'm going to not say any names, obviously, but a lot of this burnout was one, the lack of support, and the only attempts at support were toxic, right? It's one thing to come home after work and like kind of vent, right, decompress, etc. But when you are in a work environment where the entire team or department is just straight on, uh, they're just all talking about how bad the company is, and how this person this and this boss did this supervisor that, and what people some people don't realize and recognize is that really does play a toll on you mentally, whether you realize it or not, because even if you don't engage in those sessions, and if you are engaging in those sessions, I would highly recommend against it. I don't recommend engaging in those toxic vent sessions, because if you want to see who you are going to be in the next 5 years, look at who you surround yourself with. Look who you're engaging with, and if that's what you're engaging with, then you will eventually transform, right? It's easier said than done to compartmentalize and not bring that stuff and internalize it, back to you. But even if you're not engaging, right? Because you're still a part of that environment. You're still a part of that team. So that's still a reflection on what you are a part of. And this is actually part of the reason why I ended up leaving the military, was because the leadership that I experienced was incredibly toxic, and it wasn't a system I wanted to be a part of. It wasn't a culture I wanted to be a part of. And then just to relate to a lot more of you, I worked retail jobs. I worked call center jobs. I worked, I'm in my 30s now. I was only in the Navy for 7 years, right? I wasn't someone who joined right when I was 18, and just I know I was already in my 20s when I joined up. So I already had, and I've been on my own, with the lack of a support system, since my early teen years. So I don't come from money. I know what it's like to be broke. I literally know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like for that pressure to break. I know what it's like. And I unfortunately, I had to work. There was one point where I was working three jobs at once, and I didn't even have a car, so I was even walking, for a couple hours to these other places, right? Uh, just to get a couple hours in. So believe me when I say I know the struggle. However, I did have to adopt, certain mantras. I did have to keep telling myself, right, if you want to change the outcome, then you need to change the process, right? If you change the process, then you change the outcome. And when it all came boiling down for me, was when I did decide to leave the Navy, and I said, you know what? I've been through so much craziness, right? To crudely summarize everything. I've just said I am going to dedicate this next chapter of my life to pursuing a life of simplicity. I am going to keep everything simple. I am not going to complicate everything. It is as easy. Does A plus B equal C? No. Then how can we make it that way? Right? Have a plan, stick to your plan, and if you find your plan's not working, then you adapt and you adjust. You don't have to make things complicated, right? If you're looking for a partner, and even if you're right, some people call it vain, but if you don't know what you want, then write it down, right? Do and when I say write it down, that's just a method of doing something, right, to get a better outcome, right? I will use that example. Actually, I wrote down criteria in what I was looking for in a partner, and right at the same time, you want to be fair, you know. So if I wrote down 10 things, right, I want her to match at least like what 7 or 8%, or 8%, sorry, 7 or 8 of those boxes, right? Once again, it wasn't as mathematical like that, right? People aren't, machines, or people aren't, uh, like that. But it was something, right? Because I was getting burnt out from my lack of successful relationships. And when I noticed that it was my fault that I was pursuing these women who, and once again, life isn't so black and white. These are just the commonalities that I noticed, right? I was constantly pursuing women who couldn't hold down a job, right? They didn't have any type of stable income. They weren't educated, right? Some of them, didn't even complete high school. Um, they were, uh, you know, single mothers with extreme drama attached to their dynamics, and you know, without going into the nitty gritty, without going into the details, because I know some people will hear, those bullet points, and they will start inserting the well if, well you should have thought about, well it's not their fault, and I'm just gonna say you don't know the situation. Right? Like I said, I am summarizing to the bullet points. These were the things that I noticed. So when I sat down with myself and I said, you know what? Maybe if they don't have a college degree, do they have at least stable income, right? Do they at least is there at least a trade-off to something, right? Because it can't all be deficit. It can't all be negative, and that's where the scales are tipped out of your favor. Because when it comes to burnout, there are too many things that are negatively weighing on, and we can feel stuck, we can feel trapped, and as research shows, even though if we know it's bad for us, we will go, whether consciously or subconsciously, we will go back to what is familiar, right? So when I learned that, I noticed that, well, what is familiar to me were dysfunctional dynamics. That's what was dysfunctional. And I even coined, a little term when I was going through, when I was in that chapter of my life. And, I tried to laugh it off, and I was like, oh, well, I find comfort in the chaos. Ha 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 ha. Not realizing uh, how deep that actually was, how true that was. But then as well, like how not funny that is, because I didn't know uh, that I didn't know that research. I didn't know we went back to what was familiar, but I did know that on a subconscious level, right? I found it funny that I found comfort in chaos, right? That's not natural. That's not stable. That's not right. And who else in their right mind is comfortable with that? That's not a life to live. So it's 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 obviously more dynamic than kind of what I'm alluding to. I once again, like I said, I'm trying not to go into. I don't want to go into heavy detail with all of these things. But another thing I noticed with burnout is, I said earlier, the jobs. And we are notoriously overworked, underpaid, and then we're also ashamed. Society will shame us for not wanting to work 60-hour weeks for minimum pay. When if I'm a single person and I can't pay for at least a studio apartment off of one job, it doesn't matter what the job is. I could be cleaning up puke at the public park, right? I could be and actually disclaimer, if anyone works in maintenance or custodial, you are literally the backbone of the working force because without maintenance, we literally don't have facilities. We literally don't have uh, areas of retreat. We literally don't have meetup points. We don't have infrastructure. So I actually want to emphasize how we need to remove the stigma on garbage collectors, landfill workers, school janitors, etc. These people are truly keeping the infrastructure going. They really, really are. And so I used that earlier example because in our society, once again, right, it is shamed and frowned upon that these people work these jobs, right? It's frowned upon that they're quote unquote cleaning up after others. But someone's got to do it. Someone quite literally has to do it. And if they're not doing it, right, then you end up uh, having a society that is third world, right? Sanitization, uh, right? I've lived in India, and their sanitary standard is low. It is low. And right, we're not going to get into the discussion or the politics of that, but that is at the time of this recording, that is how it is, right? So when it comes to work burnout, once again, my mantra of just keeping it simple. If I don't like it, I have to leave. And it's easier said than done, right? It's easier said than done. Because now, right, I still have bills, right? Rent is still due on the first. I can't just leave and quit on that day without having another job lined up. And as we know, with how convoluted the application process is, it is almost a job in itself just looking for and applying for jobs, right? So in that you don't get paid for, right? And the more attention you have to put to that, the less attention you can put towards yourself or your family. So it's we need to more normalize how common burnout is, and we need to be looking for solutions. There was someone in that class who has diagnosed conditions, and they had an event at their job, and this person was, obviously scared to bring this stuff up, and they were more scared, and they were shaming themselves for being how they are. And I did actually speak up in this session. I did speak up to that, and I did want to let them know that there's nothing wrong with being who you are, and as long as you are working for anyone worthwhile, they should be willing to work with you, right? Because this person ended up moving, entire countries for this job. So, they can't say you don't want to be there. They can't say you don't want to work. It's if there's nothing wrong with communicating, at least there shouldn't. Keyword shouldn't. There shouldn't be anything wrong with communicating your needs, right? Let's say if you have the ability to telework, uh, and you're and right, because this is very realistic. Some people have to take trains and subways, and they got to walk, every so often, and your commute to your job can easily be over an hour, over 2 hours, right? Just situation dependent. So if you're already working an 8-hour day, but then it's a 2 hour commute to and from. Now you're working a 12-hour day, and you're not being paid for that travel. They're not going to pay you for that travel. And on top of that, that's still less time. Now you got to wake up earlier. Now you got to go to bed earlier. Now you got to, instead of being able to cook yourself a nice meal, now you're finding faster solutions, right? And faster solutions are usually unhealthy solutions. So now this is starting to affect you on a physical level, not only a mental level, but a physical level. And then once your mental and your physical are affected, the emotional becomes affected as well. And so what is what is now what was supposed to be what's more or less, a neutral situation is heavily negative. So when you all are interviewing for your jobs, and I want to kind of give you a reference point. I've been working senior level positions these past couple years. At the time of this recording, senior level positions these past couple years. I have interviewed literally hundreds of people. I have vetted people for, once again, hundreds of people for certain positions. And if someone came to me, right, not even counting, all of my leadership moments when I was enlisted, but if if one of my people had an event, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. That means something happened. That just simply means something's going on, right? And what we don't want is to go through the process finding somebody else, getting them up to speed, training them. Hopefully, they're a good fit, hopefully. So, if I had an event with one of my people, I would simply ask, how much time do you need? Right? And they might say, I don't know. Right? They'll probably say, I don't. And as a good leader, you should come back to them and say, okay, well, let's give you, if hopefully the company has a type of sick time policy, or health policy, and you can give them a week, right? Take this week, or take 2 weeks, or like, you do want to give people the amount of time they need, right? Just because everyone's different, just because maybe in your situation, maybe you would only need a couple days, that does not mean that this other person is gonna go through and process and do, that doesn't mean it's only gonna take a couple days for them, right? You need to give them the time that they need, right? And once again, they might not know. So if they do agree and they say, "Oh, I'll only need a week," right? You check up with them. Let's say they come in on Monday and you're still noticing, right? It should be on the leader at that point to say, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay?" Right? Gauge the situation. Actually practice authentic care for your person. And if you take care of your people, you will not have an issue retaining people. At the end of the day, we are adults. And if you treat adults like children, they will act like children. If you treat them like they can't be trusted, then they are going to give you every reason why you shouldn't trust them. You should not be micromanaging, right? It is the way a system should work. It should be as simple as, here is the system, right? We do A, B, C, D, we get results X, Y, Z. Here is the system. Everybody is responsible for some point in this pipeline. If you got a kink in the hose and you go to that person and they can't unkink it, give them the chance, the opportunity, and the resources to correct what they need to do. If it persists, then you deal with it if it persists, right? And this is relatively speaking, right? And that's why I use the analogy of a kink in the hose, right? The hose wasn't cut in half. Some managers will treat very small issues as big problems, and they simply are not. And I mean, it's usually middle management. I'll call it as I see it. Middle management doesn't need to be a part of our work infrastructure. I'm sorry, they don't. They don't. And I will, you will find my skeleton on that hill. But regardless, right? I, we are noticing that it's in this is a weird phenomenon. It's such a strange issue because if we know that we're all burnt out and we know it's common and there are literal groups of people every couple of days on this one platform that is seeking help from the burnout of life that is mostly due to our work society, that is a problem. That is a problem. But lo and behold, when you go to your leadership, when you go to your supervisor and you voice your concern and you ask for help, now all of a sudden you're a liability. Now you're a responsibility. Now you're a problem, right? So we can't, and just for what it's worth, once again, I can only speak on my experiences. I it really does seem like the issue and the problem is reliant on the baby boomer generation, and I'm sorry, but Gen X as well. I'm speaking in generalities. However, I can only speak to my experiences, and not only in my personal experience. That is where the problem with our work culture lied. However, right, in my social circles, my personal social circles, and other people's fields, other people's jobs, that is also where the problem has been lied or has been laying. And as well in these sessions that I attend from people all around the world, right? That is also where the problem is. It really does seem like, and I can't unsee it at this point. At this point in time, it's something that I'm trying to prove wrong, and it just keeps rearing its head again and again, and I I really, really hope it is cathartic for our generation once these traditional means of production are finally off the table and are finally retired because we are in a bursting bubble, right? The foundations are cracking, the tea kettle is whistling, people are at their wits' end. Me personally, to avoid burnout, because I don't have a support system. Remember, I don't have a support system. So if I fail, I fail. If I'm homeless in the US, that is an actual and legitimate means of death. I cannot fail. So to avoid burnout, I literally had to leave the country. I had to leave the country and I had to work for an American country abroad, right? And I had to do that because from the financial pressure alone, I literally couldn't afford to live in the United States, make ends meet, have an emergency fund, have a savings, have investments, right? All of these, and right? And this is where I will go into detail a little bit because anytime, for whatever reason, anytime I bring up financial issues, struggles, critiques, or problems, there are always multiple people who insert assumptions. So I will spend a little bit of time on this, right? Once again, I know how to be frugal. I know how to hustle. I know how to stretch my dollars. I know what it means to go without. I do not, well, I don't even like coffee, but I do not buy the Starbucks every morning, right? I don't get guacamole when I go to Chipotle, right? I still don't got it like that, right? And when it comes to these financial issues, it is it is as simple as grade school math. right? If I'm buying a used car that I want to last, and a used car that I'm not constantly doing maintenance on, because when you're constantly doing maintenance and your money is going to the maintenance, with that money you saved, you could have just gotten a newer car. You could have just gotten a better car. So when I am, driving a used car, right, could be 8 years old, 12 years old, right, for the first 20 some odd years of my life, I only drove 1990, X cars. And I went through a ton of them. I went through a ton of them because I was having to buy cars that were at the end of their life because that's all I could afford, right? I didn't have them, and since I didn't have the money, I didn't have a credit score. I didn't have any credit established. Couldn't get approved for any loans, right? These are legitimate issues. These are that hundreds of thousands of people face every single day. So when I say I couldn't do it in the States, I legitimately mean I could not do it. Because my reality, right? I will be upfront. My reality is at the time of this recording, I am in my 30s. I suffered an injury in my late 20s. I legitimately might not be able to work one day. That is how bad my injury is. There will be a day that I will need, right, saving, hopefully, what will be a saving surgery. And that's not to correct, right? That's not to fix me up. That's to fix a problem that is imminent in my life that will happen, right? And there might be a day where I legitimately cannot work. So why, not even why, right? So I can't continue to live in a society where if you go to school, you're in crippling debt. If you buy a car, you're in crippling debt. If you have a child and you need daycare, then you're in crippling debt. Then everything that we need to live and function, and anything that is infrastructure related, right? And I didn't even mention housing. I didn't even mention housing. It is simple grade school math. I couldn't afford college. That's why I enlisted, right? And I want that to sink in. I couldn't afford to read a book, so I literally put my fucking life on the line multiple times. Multiple times. Just so on the off chance I made it back, I could come back debilitated, injured. Oh, but at least I got the GI Bill. Well, at least you can get, disability from the VA. At least you can get, you know what? And yeah, at least, because literally at least that's the minimum they can do. But I'd rather have my health. Just plain and simple. I would rather have my health. And there's only three outcomes when you live in America. There's really only three outcomes. You either already come from money, so you're fine. You either have to find extreme means to live, or you accept the reality of the system and accept that you are going to be in debt for your entire life, right? By doing things quote unquote right way. I mean, unless you just get incredibly lucky trying to be a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, TikTok, Instagram influencer, right? Unless you somehow figure out how to go viral, and some people are good like that, some people are able to do it. Unless you got it like that, then just plain and simple, this is the reality of our society. And I do believe, right, with good reason, with reputable sources and cold hard numbers and facts, we are seeing the downfall of America as an empire. And I, China is up next. They are the next competitor, big competitor. Uh, but that's a whole other discussion. I mainly wanted to get on here, make this second episode about burnout because you are not alone in your burnout. You are. Uh, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not lazy. You're not crazy. And don't even believe the people that are loud and wrong about it because those are the ones who are usually ignorant to their situation and they view burnout as normal, and so they don't even realize they're running on E. Right? Take care of yourself. Find a good support system. Right? Whether it's social, whether it's financial, whether it's uh, familial, and make sure you always have it for you. And if any of you have any questions, or if you want to write in, or if you want to discuss anything, I will make time for you. I am here for anyone who's willing. So you can write. My contact is posted all over this page. Uh, just know that you're not the only one, and if you do need to talk to someone, you can talk to me. Thank you all. Take care of yourselves. Have a good one.